There comes a moment in life when someone realizes that what they had is no longer theirs, not because it disappeared overnight, not because fate suddenly took it away, but because they slowly let it slip through their fingers while believing it would always be there. And when she knows she lost you, something changes. Not always on the outside, not immediately, but deep inside where pride can no longer hide the truth. At first, she may try to act unaffected. She may tell herself that your absence doesn't matter. She may convince herself that moving on is easy. She may even appear happier than ever, but appearances can be deceptive. Sometimes the loudest smiles are covering the deepest realization, just because when someone truly loses a person who cared, respected, and valued them, the silence becomes impossible to ignore. The messages stop. The attention disappears. The energy that was once freely given is no longer there. And suddenly, what seemed ordinary becomes rare. She starts remembering things she once overlooked: the way you checked on her, the way you listened, the way you noticed small details nobody else paid attention to, the way you showed up when it mattered. Those things didn't seem extraordinary when they were happening every day, but now they're gone, and absence has a strange way of revealing value. People often don't recognize what they have until they no longer have access to it. When she knows she lost you, she begins comparing, not because she wants to, because the mind naturally compares the present to the past. She meets new people, she talks to others, but something feels different. Something feels missing. The effort isn't the same. The sincerity isn't the same. The connection isn't the same. And that's when reality starts speaking louder than pride. She realizes that what she considered normal was actually rare. A man who genuinely cared, a man who stayed consistent, a man who invested his time, energy, and attention. Those things are easy to underestimate until they're gone. And once they're gone, replacing them becomes much harder than expected. When she knows she lost you, your silence begins to affect her more than your words ever did. Because people become accustomed to presence. They expect it. They rely on it. They assume it will always be there. But when that presence disappears, they are forced to confront what life feels like without it. The phone becomes quieter. The days become different. The emotional safety they once took for granted is suddenly missing. And that's when questions begin. What happened to him? Why did he stop reaching out? Why doesn't he react anymore? Why does he seem okay without me? Those questions become louder every day because what troubles people most is not always losing someone. It's realizing that the person they lost finally found peace without them. There is something powerful about a person who stops chasing, not because they are angry, not because they want revenge, but because they finally understand their worth. The moment you stop begging for attention is the moment your value becomes visible. The moment you stop forcing conversations is the moment people notice your absence. The moment you stop proving yourself is the moment others start wondering whether they underestimated you. And when she knows she lost you, she notices these changes. She notices that you're no longer waiting, no longer convincing, no longer explaining, no longer trying to earn a place in someone's life. You're simply moving forward, and that can be difficult to watch because people expect the version of you they've always known, the version that stays, the version that forgives endlessly, the version that keeps returning. But growth changes people. Growth teaches you that love should not require constant sacrifice of self-respect. Growth teaches you that effort should be mutual. Growth teaches you that your value doesn't decrease because someone failed to appreciate it. And when she sees that growth, she starts realizing what she truly lost. Not just your attention, not just your affection, but your willingness to invest in her. That realization can be heavy because attention can be found elsewhere. Validation can be found elsewhere. Distractions can be found elsewhere. But genuine care is rare, very rare. And once it's gone, it often becomes impossible to replace. She may start checking your social media more often, not because she's obsessed, but because curiosity grows when certainty disappears. She wants to know if you're doing well. She wants to know if you've moved on. She wants to know whether someone else is receiving the energy she once took for granted. And every sign that you're becoming stronger without her creates a complicated emotion, part admiration, part regret, part disbelief, because she expected you to remain exactly where she left you. Many people do. They think you'll always be available, always waiting, always hoping, but life doesn't work that way. People evolve, people heal, people grow, and sometimes the person who once couldn't imagine life without someone becomes the person who finally discovers peace alone. That's when the loss becomes real. Because losing someone isn't always about distance. Sometimes it's about realizing they are no longer emotionally attached to the version of the story you were still holding on to. When she knows she lost you, memories begin returning unexpectedly. A song, a place, a conversation, a photograph, a random moment during an ordinary day. And suddenly she's reminded of everything she thought she had more time to appreciate. That's the thing about opportunities. They often look permanent until they disappear. Then suddenly they become priceless. And while she may never say it out loud, there are moments when she wonders what would have happened if she had valued you differently, if she had listened more, if she had appreciated more, if she had recognized your worth before your absence taught her the lesson. Because hindsight is powerful. It gives clarity that wasn't available before. It reveals mistakes that once seemed insignificant. It highlights moments that could have changed everything. But time only moves forward, never backward. And one of the hardest truths people face is realizing that some opportunities don't return, not because forgiveness is impossible, but because growth creates new paths. The person you become after learning your worth is not the same person who accepted less than they deserved. The person who is healed is different from the person who was hurting. The person who has found peace is different from the person who was chasing. And when she knows she lost you, she begins to understand that the greatest loss wasn't losing your attention. It was losing someone who genuinely wanted to give it, someone who saw her flaws and still chose her, someone who cared when it wasn't convenient, someone who stayed when leaving would have been easier. That realization doesn't always arrive immediately. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years. But eventually, reality catches up with everyone. Eventually, people understand the value of what they once had. Eventually, they recognize the rarity of sincere effort. Eventually, they understand that loyalty, consistency, and genuine care are not guaranteed. They are gifts. And when those gifts are no longer available, the absence becomes impossible to ignore. Because the truth is simple: when she knows she lost you, she doesn't just miss your presence. She misses the way you made her feel. She misses the certainty. She misses the comfort. She misses the energy. She misses the version of life that existed when someone genuinely cared enough to stay, enough to try, enough to believe, and enough to choose her even when nobody forced them to. The difficult part is that by the time she fully understands it, you may already be far ahead on your journey. Not because you stopped caring overnight, not because the memories vanished, but because healing slowly teaches a person to carry their past without living inside it. Every day you spend focusing on yourself changes something. Every lesson strengthens you. Every disappointment teaches you what you deserve. Every moment of solitude reveals parts of yourself that were hidden beneath the need for validation. And while she is beginning to realize what she lost, you are beginning to realize what you gained. You gain clarity, you gain self respect, you gain peace. You gain the understanding that your worth was never dependent on someone else's ability to recognize it. That realization is powerful because once a person truly understands their value, they stop negotiating it. They stop begging for what should be given freely. They stop chasing people who keep running. They stop sacrificing themselves to maintain one sided connections. And when she sees that version of you, it creates a different kind of impact. She notices your confidence. She notices your calmness. She notices that you are no longer reacting the way you used to. The things that once controlled your emotions no longer have power over you. The situations that once broke your heart no longer define your days. You are standing differently, speaking differently, living differently, and that transformation forces her to confront something uncomfortable. The version of you she lost is gone. Not physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. The person who once waited endlessly has evolved. The person who once accepted uncertainty has learned to value certainty. The person who once tolerated confusion has learned to seek clarity. And growth like that cannot be reversed. Sometimes she tries to reconnect, not always directly. Sometimes it's a simple message. Sometimes it's a reaction to something you post. Sometimes it's a random conversation that seems innocent on the surface. But beneath it often exists a question she may never ask out loud. Do I still matter to him? Is there still a place for me? Has he really moved on? Because human beings are curious about unfinished chapters, especially when they realize they were the reason the chapter ended. She may replay old conversations in her mind. She may remember moments where you asked for understanding, moments where you tried to communicate, moments where you fought for the relationship while she remains uncertain. And now looking back, those moments appear different because perspective changes everything. What once seemed excessive now appears sincere. Snorts. What once seemed ordinary now appears meaningful. What once seemed guaranteed now appears irreplaceable. That is the strange thing about loss. It acts like a magnifying glass. Suddenly, every good memory becomes clearer. Every effort becomes more visible. Every sacrifice becomes easier to appreciate. The things that were ignored become impossible to forget. And while she reflects on the past, you are creating a future that is often what hurts the most. Not that you disappeared, but that life continued without her involvement. People rarely expect that. They assume they will always occupy a special place in someone's emotional world. They assume the connection will remain available whenever they decide to return. But life doesn't pause for anyone. Healing doesn't wait for permission. Growth doesn't ask for approval. When a person commits to becoming stronger, the world keeps moving forward. And one day she notices that you are genuinely happy, not pretending, not performing, actually happy. You laugh more. You worry less. You carry yourself with purpose. You seem lighter, more focused, more grounded. And suddenly she understands something she never considered before. You didn't need her to become complete. You only needed yourself. That realization can be difficult because many people mistake love for dependency. They believe being needed is the same as being valued. But real value exists even when dependency disappears. Real value remains when someone can walk away and still choose themselves. And when she sees that, she begins understanding your strength in a way she never did before. The strength wasn't in staying forever. The strength was in leaving when your self respect demanded it. The strength wasn't in endless patience. The strength was in recognizing when patience was being mistaken for weakness. The strength wasn't in convincing someone to love you. The strength was in knowing that genuine love should never require constant persuasion. That lesson changes everything because once you understand it, you stop trying to earn what should be mutual. You stop proving what should already be obvious. You stop shrinking yourself to fit inside someone else's uncertainty. And that is exactly why your absence feels different now. You didn't disappear out of bitterness, you disappeared out of growth. There's a difference. Bitterness seeks revenge, growth seeks peace. Bitterness wants others to suffer, growth wants freedom. Bitterness remains attached to the past. Growth learns from the past and keeps moving. And people can sense that difference. They can feel it. They can see it. When she knows she lost you, she may experience moments of regret that arrive unexpectedly late at night, during quiet mornings, in the middle of ordinary days, moments where everything suddenly becomes clear, moments where she realizes that the attention she once ignored is now the attention she misses. The loyalty she once questioned is now the loyalty she searches for. The consistency she once overlooked is now the consistency she cannot find. Life has a way of teaching lessons through contrast. You don't always appreciate warmth until you've experienced cold. You don't always appreciate peace until you've experienced chaos. You don't always appreciate loyalty until you've experienced betrayal. And you don't always appreciate someone's value until they're no longer available. That doesn't make her a bad person. It makes her human. People learn through experience. People learn through consequences. People learn through loss. Sometimes loss becomes the teacher that finally reveals what words could never explain. And perhaps the most powerful part of all this is that you no longer need her realization to validate your worth. Think about that. There was a time when you wanted her to understand. You wanted her to see your value. You wanted her to appreciate your effort. You wanted recognition. You wanted reassurance. You wanted proof that everything you invested meant something. But growth changes that. Now you understand something much deeper. Your value existed whether she recognized it or not. Your effort mattered whether she appreciated it or not. Your character remained valuable whether she acknowledged it or not. Because worth is not created by approval. Worth is discovered within. And once that truth settles into your heart, something remarkable happens. You become free. Free from constantly seeking validation. Free from chasing acceptance. Free from needing someone else's opinion to determine your significance. That freedom is attractive not because it impresses others, because it transforms you. It allows you to focus on becoming rather than proving. It allows you to invest energy into your future instead of your frustration. It allows you to build a life that isn't dependent on anyone else's choices. And that is often when she notices the biggest change. You are no longer trying to be chosen. You have chosen yourself. There is immense power in that because people who choose themselves radiate a different energy. They walk differently. They think differently. They carry a quiet confidence that cannot be manufactured, a confidence born from surviving disappointment, a confidence born from overcoming heartbreak, a confidence born from discovering strength they never knew they possessed. And when she sees that confidence, it reminds her of what she lost. Not because you became perfect, not because you became famous, not because you suddenly transformed into someone else, but because you became the fullest version of yourself, the version she never expected to see, the version that emerged after the pain, the version that grew through adversity, the version that no longer seeks permission to be valuable. That realization lingers. It follows her during moments of reflection. It appears during conversations. It surfaces when she encounters people who remind her of you because genuine connections leave impressions that time cannot easily erase. People forget details, they forget dates, they forget specific words, but they rarely forget how someone made them feel. And perhaps that is what stays with her the longest. the feeling of being cared for, the feeling of being understood, the feeling of having someone who genuinely wanted the best for her. Those feelings don't disappear quickly, they remain in the background, quietly reminding her of what once existed. Meanwhile, your journey continues. You keep building, you keep growing, you keep learning, you keep becoming stronger than you were yesterday. And with every step forward, the distance between who you were and who you are becomes greater. The pain that once dominated your thoughts becomes a lesson. The heartbreak that once consumed your energy becomes wisdom. The disappointment that once weakened you becomes fuel. And before long, you realize that losing her was not the end of your story. It was the beginning of a transformation you never would have experienced otherwise. A transformation that taught you resilience, a transformation that taught you patience, a transformation that taught you self respect, a transformation that revealed the incredible strength that had been inside you all along. And while she may continue reflecting on what she lost, you continue discovering what you gained: a stronger mindset, a clearer vision, a deeper understanding of yourself, a greater appreciation for your own worth. And perhaps the most important lesson of all is realizing that the right people will never require you to abandon yourself in order to keep them in your life. They will never make you feel as though your love must be constantly proven. They will never leave you questioning your value every single day. They will recognize your effort, appreciate your presence, and meet your energy with energy of their own. Because healthy connections are built on mutual respect, mutual investment, and mutual appreciation. They are not built on one person carrying the entire weight while the other simply watches. And once you understand that truth, you can never return to the version of yourself that accepted less than what your heart deserved, because your standards have changed. Your awareness has expanded, and your understanding of genuine connection has become far too deep to ignore. And that is why the story changes. Because there was a time when your happiness depended on her choices, a time when one message could make your day, a time when one cold response could ruin your mood, a time when your emotional world revolved around what she did or didn't do. But eventually, something shifted. You became tired of giving all your power away. You became tired of allowing someone else's actions to determine your peace. You became tired of carrying expectations that were never being met. And little by little, you started taking your power back. Not all at once, not overnight, but one decision at a time, one lesson at a time, one difficult day at a time. You learned how to sit alone without feeling lonely. You learned how to enjoy your own company. You learned how to build a life that didn't depend on constant attention from someone else. And that growth is impossible to fake. People can pretend to be confident. They can pretend to be happy. They can pretend to have moved on. But genuine inner peace always reveals itself.